Welcome to my YouTube channel. Most beautiful places in Russia. Russia, or the Russian Federation, is a transcontinental country spanning Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. It is the largest country in the world, encompassing 1/8 of Earth's inhabitable landmass. Russia extends across 11 time zones and shares land boundaries with 14 countries. It is the world's 9th most populous country and Europe's most populous country. The country's capital and largest city is Moscow. St. Petersburg is Russia's cultural center and second largest city. Other major urban areas in the country include Novosibirsk, Ekaterinburg, Nizhny Novgorod, Chelyabinsk, Krasnoyarsk, and Kazan. The East Slavs emerged as a recognizable group in Europe between the 3rd and 8th centuries CE. The first East Slavic state, Kievan Rus, arose in the 9th century, and in 988, it adopted Orthodox Christianity from the Byzantine Empire. Rus ultimately disintegrated, with the Grand Duchy of Moscow growing to become the Tsardom of Russia. By the early 18th century, Russia had vastly expanded through conquest, annexation, and the efforts of Russian explorers, developing into the Russian Empire, which remains the 3rd largest empire in history. However, with the Russian Revolution in 1917, Russia's monarchic rule was abolished and eventually replaced by the Russian SFSR, the world's first constitutionally socialist state. Following the Russian Civil War, the Russian SFSR established the Soviet Union with 3 other Soviet republics, within which it was the largest and principal constituent. At the expense of millions of lives, the Soviet Union underwent rapid industrialization in the 1930s, and later played a decisive role for the Allies of World War II by leading large-scale efforts on the Eastern Front. With the onset of the Cold War, it competed with the United States for global ideological influence. The Soviet era of the 20th century saw some of the most significant Russian technological achievements, including the first human-made satellite and the first human expedition into outer space. In 1991, the Russian SFSR emerged from the dissolution of the Soviet Union as the independent Russian Federation. A new constitution was adopted, which established a federal semi-presidential system. Since the turn of the century, Russia's political system has been dominated by Vladimir Putin, under whom the country has experienced democratic backsliding and a shift towards authoritarianism. Russia has been involved militarily in a number of post-Soviet conflicts, which has included the internationally unrecognized annexations of Crimea in 2014 from neighboring Ukraine, followed by the further annexation of 4 other regions in 2022 during an ongoing invasion. Internationally, Russia ranks amongst the lowest in measurements of democracy, human rights, and freedom of the press. The country also has high levels of perceived corruption. The Russian economy ranks 11th by nominal GDP, relying heavily upon its abundant natural resources. Its mineral and energy sources are the world's largest, and its figures for oil production and natural gas production rank high globally. The Russian GDP ranks 65th by per capita. Russia possesses the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons, and has the 3rd highest military expenditure. The country is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, a member state of the G20, the SCO, BRICS, the APEC, the OSCE, and the WTO, and is the leading member state of post-Soviet organizations such as the CIS, the CSTO, and the Eurasian Economic Union, EAEU. Russia is home to 30 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The name Russia comes from a medieval Latin name for Rus, a medieval state populated primarily by the East Slavs. In modern historiography, this state is usually denoted as Kievan Rus after its capital city. The name Rus itself comes from the early medieval Rus people, who were originally a group of Norse merchants and warriors who relocated from across the Baltic Sea and first settled in the northern region of Novgorod, and later founded a state centered on Kiev. Another medieval Latin name for Rus was Ruthenia. In Russian, the current name of the country, Rossiya, comes from the Byzantine Greek name for Rus, Rho Omega Sigma Alpha, Rosia. A new form of the name Rus, Rosia, was borrowed from the Greek term and first attested in 1387, before coming into official use by the 15th century, though the country was still often referred to by its inhabitants as Rus or the Russian land until the end of the 17th century. There are two words in Russian which translate to Russians in English, Russky, which refers to ethnic Russians, and Rossian, which refers to Russian citizens, regardless of ethnicity. The first human settlement on Russia dates back to the Oldowan period in the early Lower Paleolithic. About 2 million years ago, representatives of Homo erectus migrated to the Taman Peninsula in southern Russia. Flint tools, some 1.5 million years old, have been discovered in the North Caucasus. 30 radiocarbon-dated specimens from Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains estimate the oldest Denisovan specimen lived 195 to 122,700 years ago. Fossils of Deni, an archaic human hybrid that was half Neanderthal and half Denisovan, and lived some 90,000 years ago, was also found within the latter cave. Russia was home to some of the last surviving Neanderthals, from about 45,000 years ago, found in Mezmaiskia Cave. The first trace of an early modern human in Russia dates back to 45,000 years, in western Siberia. The discovery of high-concentration cultural remains of anatomically modern humans, from at least 40,000 years ago, was found at Kostianki, Borshchiovo, and at Sungur, dating back to 34,600 years ago, both in western Russia. Humans reached Arctic Russia at least 40,000 years ago, in Mamontovaya Kuria. Ancient North Eurasian populations from Siberia genetically similar to Malta, Buret culture and Afantova Gora were an important genetic contributor to ancient Native Americans and Eastern hunter-gatherers. I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching.